He threw a leg across that iron horse and pulled the throttle down. A million things rushing through his mind like that rumbling sound. Living life in his own eyes, direction isn't clear. So searching all these years.
Welcome to Answers from Mars Hill. This is Pastor Ski of the Rushing Wind Biker Church out in Holbrook, New York. I want to welcome you to this week's show. Last week we had a show that I put together for 4th of July about the freedom we have as Christians, what freedom really is. Talking about how we celebrate, how we view freedom in this country. And if you have a chance, maybe go back and check out last week's show, because freedom is one of the main reasons why Jesus came, why God sent His Son to free us from a lot of the influences, bondages, and things that we face in this life. You know, Jesus, actually John says, "He who the Son sets free is free indeed," and it says, "It is for freedom that the Son of Man came." And so if you have a chance, go back to last week's show, and I think it will speak to you, hopefully encourage you about freedom in general. We're in a time in history in our country where it just seems like, you know, we've been one of the freest nation with many of the freedoms that a lot of other people in other countries don't have. And it seems that everything is being threatened right now. So I hope you're encouraged. Take a look at last week's program. So it's 2/3 of the way through July now. The summer is kind of winding 2/3 of the way through, which normally I go into a depression. You know, being a biker, someone who rides, likes to be out in the good weather. The hotter, the better. It's kind of a bittersweet time of year. And, you know, last 2 weeks I got to spend out in California. Same temperatures, a lot less humidity. And so I just love the warm weather. I love the summers. I love the springtime. Fall is okay, but it's a reminder of what's coming behind it for us that live in the Northeast. And so things are rolling with our church. You know, if you're on the island, you ever have a chance to come down. We're in Holbrook. We got a pretty cool thing going on. This weekend we're going to have our annual church picnic. We're going to be baptized people out in the Long Island Sound. And that's always exciting because it's amazing how people are drawn to things that you wouldn't expect. And whenever we go out to a public place to do baptisms, a crowd ends up coming. They all know what's going on. It just seems like something that people want to share in. So, you know, it's interesting how these Christian arenas sometimes are intriguing and encouraging to people. And so we have that going on. We had our big motorcycle event. We raised money for bikers who get in accidents. We had that a couple of weeks ago. Phenomenal turnout. Raised more money than we've ever raised before. Lots of clubs came. A lot of independent riders. Because we're a Christian entity, we had people from churches that came and just break bread, listen to some good music, had vendors, and of course a motorcycle run, which is always part of what we do. And so it's an exciting time of year. You know, we're still suffering from some of the remnants of this pandemic of the coronavirus. And, you know, even as we speak, last week, California decided that they were going to come out with a mask mandate again. And so Los Angeles now has a mask mandate again. And they're going backwards. And the rest of the country seems like they're moving forward. And, you know, these different strains or whatever else, which always happens with a virus, has got people in a panic, a lot of fear gripping people. And unfortunately, there's a lot of politicians that are using all these things to gain power, to hold people in oppression, so that they have to march in line with whatever the government has to say. And I don't want to get too political, and we'll kind of leave that there. But it's interesting to see what's happening in the world right now. And so today we're going to go in a little different direction. Um, I've been in my church sharing through the book of Romans, and this faith that we have called Christianity, and the nuts and bolts, the understanding of it. And this show is really has the intent of wanting to get people to understand. If you get drawn to it, if you dislike it more, that's fine. The thing I've always really promoted is hear what something is really about, and then if you want to make a decision, make the most educated decision you can. Whether it's about faith, whether it's about anything in your life, whether it's about employment, your job, your career, your children, everything we should view from the aspect of wanting to get all the information so we can make the educated decision. And with the Christian faith and Christianity in general, there are so many things out there that portray themselves as faith in Jesus, Christianity, different denominations. There are cults that have been grouped in that believe in a totally different story, a totally different gospel. They have Jesus in their story, but it's not the one of the Bible. And so today I want to veer kind of dangerously into the most powerful identifier of the Christian faith. The one thing that makes it different than literally any other faith, and that is the idea of grace, and the idea that we're saved through nothing we do, but by everything God does. And obviously, what we believe and what Jesus was and what he came to do, and he was a historical figure. He lived, historical figure that died. There's a lot of historical and documented evidence that he did rise from the dead, and was seen by a lot of people. And that's really the factual history. But as we know right now, people are rewriting history. They've been doing that for the longest time. But what I want to hone in on today is when you understand from the theological point of view, the Christian faith, we are the only one that has a guarantee. And what do I mean by that? We have the things we hold true, the promises and the hope we have of salvation, our relationship with God, heaven, new earth, eternity, empowerments here that we can persevere, be victorious in this life through all the hard things, the trials. Yes, there's the miraculous that tends to happen, but I don't believe that we should base our faith on that. That's kind of a fringe benefit of our faith. But within our faith, there's a guarantee that all those things are guaranteed. It's not like we're hoping that we got the one thing that's right. Every other faith, there's spiritual and ethereal wondering within their faith. And when you really dive into the Christian faith and read and understand, we don't have to wonder if this is where we put our life. And so when we come back from our first break, I'm going to talk about this impossible guarantee that God gave us, that grace through faith is the answer. We'll be right back with Answers from Mars Hill.
Hey everybody, this is Motorcycle Mike, the personal injury lawyer. I've been riding motorcycles my entire adult life. During the course of my 30-year career as a lawyer, I've also represented countless injured motorcyclists. If you're one of them, I can be of assistance to you. Go to my website, please, motorcyclemikeesq.com. I'll always be there for you. I'm on your side when you ride.
Welcome back to Answers to Mars Hill. And today we're going to have a discussion on the guarantee that is within the faith of Christianity. I've called it the faith grace guarantee. And just to explain a little bit out of the whole biblical context of that, I think people realize that we are an Abrahamic religion, Christianity, Judaism, and also Islam all come from the story of this man Abraham, and father of our faith. That's not just a Jewish premise; it's actually a Christian premise also, because all the promises, including the ones that were fulfilled through Messiah, Jesus, was given to Abraham. And so I want to really talk about how you may have heard Christians say that it's not about religion, it's about a relationship. And for those who are not really looking to be religious or connect themselves or even seek a higher understanding through faith, that sounds like something that just sounds, you say that, but you're another religion. And I want to kind of come against that because Christianity and its premise and its principle and what it's founded on and what we believe and hold true is anything but religious. The Jewish faith is a religion. The culmination of that was to actually abolish the religion that was needed until the Messiah came. And so this guarantee we have, it goes all the way back to Abraham. And Abraham was given a promise when he was a lot younger than when he had children, that God was going to make him the nation. He was going to create a nation, God's nation, through him, with millions and millions of people that were going to be in this nation that would be known as God's people. And so Abraham just got up and moved. He said, "Get up." God said, "Get up, leave your family, go to some place that I'm not even going to tell you where you're going to be now. All I'm saying is, go. I'm going to lead you. I'll tell you when you get there. When you get there, there's going to be what we're going to call a promised land, a land that I'm going to give you, and where you're going to plant, and you're going to be a nation, and you're going to be my lighthouse to the world." And so Abraham went, and as he went, there were situations in his life, and he wasn't a perfect man. And that really encourages all of us that you can do incredible things for God, and God uses broken people. And it wasn't like Abraham was a pillar of righteousness when he was called. He was part of a pagan land, practicing a pagan religion, and God wanted to create hope, and he just picked someone. And Abraham happened to be that guy. And so, as the story goes, Abraham became older, and God spoke to him again when he was, I believe, 75 years old, and said, "You're going to have a child, and that child is going to be the beginning of a nation." And God said, "I'm going to give you a child." And at that point, he was 70-something years old. His wife Sarah, 10 years younger. And so, okay, that's in the realm of possibility. And so he believed God and kept moving. And then time went by, And then years went by, and he was getting old. His wife was getting old, and so his wife said, I think God might need a hand in this. And so they had a child on their own, and that was Ishmael, and that was the one who the Muslims based their whole faith on, was Islam. And so as the story goes, Sarah could no longer have children, so told Abraham to have a child through her handmaiden, Hagar, obviously much younger. And so that's how Ishmael was born. And it was a corruption of the promise. Abraham and Sarah wanted to make sure the promise came about, and it looked impossible, so they took matters into their own hands. And how many of us do that? That we take matters in our own hands when God's working too slowly. And so, as the story goes, 13 years goes by, and now Abraham is 99 years old. Sarah is 89. God speaks to Abraham again and tells him, a year from now, you're going to be having a baby. And Abraham is really thrilled, but he's kind of misinterpreted what God has said, and he actually says that, okay, I guess we're going to now raise Ishmael up to be the fulfillment of the promise that you promised us. And God says, no, I don't work that way. Ishmael is not the promise that I gave you. Ishmael is what you did when you didn't trust that I could do this without you. And so at 99 years old, Abraham, and 89 years old, Sarah, and as the Bible says, Abraham counted himself as dead, and Sarah's womb, done, finished, game over. Yet God created a miracle, and a year later they had Isaac. And God's point was, I'm going to do this in a way that is impossible, that you could not have gotten involved. I don't need you to fulfill my promise. And that was the point of that part of the story. And so Abraham goes on, and we know that he understood at that point that God is greater than anything that we can do, that he can do things that we can never do. Paul, when he's talking about this story, says God is the one who raises the dead and who brings something out of nothing. And that's exactly what he did in Isaac. And so the story goes on that Abraham has been called on by God years later to sacrifice his son. God says, sacrifice Isaac. And so takes Isaac up to a mountain, and he's ready to kill him. But he still knows God has a promise, and the promise is going to come through Isaac. And so he so trusted in God, the God that can do the impossible, and the God that can bring the dead back to life. He knew that if he were to kill Isaac, that God would somehow bring him back to life. And that's the faith our Christianity is based on, going back to the first father of our faith. And so that story of Isaac is really a picture of every one of us who come to Christ. This whole idea of being born again, it's something only God can do. We can't do it. Jesus walked out of the grave 3 days after he was dead. Only God could do that. And so we believe our faith is founded, and the foundation is on God is the God of impossible things. So in order for me to become someone who is actually worthy of God, it would take something impossible. And this is why religion has lost it, and religion has gone off base. And why other faiths, they don't have assurance. There's I guess a cliche, you might call it, in the Christian faith called blessed assurance. Well, that's the assurance of if we have stepped into this faith and we've given our faith to Christ, and we know the promises of what is to be, the promise of what we have now, that it's a guarantee. It's the faith, grace guarantee. It's through faith in what God can do that we can't do. It's grace, which is nothing we can deserve. There's no way that we can deserve or do anything to be right with God, which throws religion on its head, because religion is all about what can I do to climb up the mountain and get closer to God? What can I do to appease God? What does God want me to do now that I've become His follower? And the truth of the matter is, God's done it all. And when the God of all creation has done everything required, it's a rock-solid guarantee that we know that the culmination of our life, the power that we have in this life, is a guarantee. And most people that are Christian, I'm going to go out on a limb and say most people don't understand that, because they beat themselves up for sin, for making mistakes, and they don't understand Jesus paid for all that, and it's guaranteed. And they feel they have to do things, and so they have different traditions, they have different sacramental things that different denominations have come in. And there's Pentecostal realms that you need to do this way because God wants you to do this way, and a lot of things that religion has taken the simplicity out of faith. So I want to bring my producer Bobby in at the end of this segment and throw this premise around, because it's the most important premise of the Christian faith, that we're saved by faith through grace, not of anything we can do. So we have no culpability in it. How we doing, Bobby?
We're doing good, although you brought me in with only like a minute and a half to go. So I have something, and I don't know, I think I might want to just save it for the beginning of the next segment.
Or we could use it as a teaser to get into the next segment.
Okay, so the teaser would be just like, you're telling us stories from Abraham, how, just that trust in God, there's nothing that you can do. It kind of reminded me of Mary, an angel coming to her and say, you're going to bear the Son of God, and without any man involved or anything like that, just through God itself. And Mary, she, as crazy as it sounds, she says, yes, let's do it. So like that faith is so incredible that some people have. So my real teaser is I just wanted to kind of reflect on a lot of the martyrs throughout history since the beginning of Christianity, who their faith was so strong, they believed 100% that they will be with God when they die, that they, when put in position to denounce their religion, denounce their faith, that they said no, and they were killed and tortured, and like that's the ultimate, like you said, like there's nothing that you can do to me, and there's nothing that I can do. I have that guarantee.
Yeah,
I will not denounce my faith. I will not denounce my belief in Jesus Christ. Kill me, because that's how strong I believe. And through the course of history, even like in Japan, a certain, just every culture across the United States, these Christians has literally died.
Right.
And all they had to do was say, no, okay, I don't believe it. You're right.
No, that's good.
So
that's a good direction.
Yeah, so maybe we can talk a little bit about that.
I think we might talk a lot about that.
Okay.
So we'll be back in a couple of minutes with part 3 of this program, talking about the faith grace guarantee. And actually, as Bobby said, probably shown more profoundly in the martyrs of our faith. So we'll be back in a few minutes with answers from Mars Hill. Hi everyone, Pastor Ski here, and I want to thank you for watching our program. I want to just tell you about two resources that I have for you. Sources of encouragement. I've lived a very challenging life, and God has allowed me to go through a lot of things, and I've written 2 books. The first one is called The Fear of Life. This is kind of my life story of a very hard childhood, very dark childhood, dark family life, and how God redeemed my life from it, how He showed me life when I thought that life wasn't available. And then I wrote this book called No Sting when I went through my battle with with terminal cancer, and how God healed me, how He enlightened me, strengthened me, and made a big difference in my life. And both of these very encouraging resources, sources of inspiration. If you know people who are struggling, people who have hard lives, or people that are struggling with cancer, they would be probably a good resource. And if you would like to purchase one of these books, you can go to BarnesandNoble.com, Amazon.com, and the Zulon Press bookstore. And I appreciate your support, and get these out and help a lot of people. God bless you all, and I'll see you down the road. Welcome back to Answers from Mars Hill. Again, this is Pastor Ski, and we're talking about one of the deepest parts of our faith, the faith, grace, guarantee, which I explained a little bit in the last segment. And Bobby brought up something pretty intriguing at the end of that segment, which I hadn't really considered. You know, I mean, I try to do this show kind of ad lib, and I never know what God's going to throw out us for us to discuss. And so the idea of martyrdom. And that really, if you look at the craziness of how the Christian faith started and how the first church started, and you look at the people who started it, the 12 disciples, let's use them in the beginning. Bobby went to the martyrs, which 11 of the 12 disciples were the original martyrs. And also the family of Jesus, his brothers and his sisters and his mother, all were followers, part of the first church. And so, you look at this guarantee. Christian religion, it doesn't make sense that man would start this thing. If man was going to start a religion, what would that look like? It wouldn't look like serve everyone, honor your, love your enemies, serve those who use you, turn the other cheek, give the second coat, and all the other things that we're told in the scriptures that Jesus professed that are part of our faith. Nobody would create this because it goes counter to the whole human realm of how we think. But it's the ideal of how the human realm was created to think. And so one of I think the best ways to understand that God gives us a guarantee, rock solid guarantee. Jesus walked with these men, and he died. And then he walked out of the grave. And these men that walked with him, and then the first church, and a lot of people saw him when he was alive, they were willing to give up everything, willing to not deny him, die for this faith of following Jesus Christ. What would compel somebody to do that? His own brother James ends up being a leader in the church. This is a guy that grew up with him. Someone who thought that his big brother was crazy. Tried to keep people from, hurting him before, he went to the cross. And he ends up being a solid leader and follower, and ends up being martyred, thrown off the roof of the temple, and then laying in the courtyard being stoned because he didn't die when he hit the ground fast enough. Willing to do that. Only someone who knew that what he believed in had a guarantee would do that. And so, when Bobby talks about the martyrs, it is something very unique to the faith of Christianity. And it's not like, other faiths have, several people here and there that have martyred, been willing to die for their faith. Islam, people are willing to die for their faith if they take other people with them. That's a different way of looking at things. Christianity is willing to die and allow people to kill us in the name of our faith, not taking anyone with us, but actually loving those who are killing us in the process. What would compel that story? And it would have to be something that you just were so sure. And that's why Christianity has been different. And I propose to those out there that are, in churches, and churches that have given us a set of rules You know, and it's just like the Jewish people. You know, you had 10 commandments and you had 613 laws. Christianity's done the same thing. You know, how many churches that you have to dress a certain way to walk into that church? You have to look a certain way to walk into that church. This kind of music, oh, you can't have that kind of music in church. You can't have this kind of music in church. You know, and on and on and on. And, you know, in other churches, you know, if you don't raise your hands right, you're not really praising God. And all of a sudden it becomes things that we got to do right. And we're human. You know, we're not going to do everything right. It's kind of an aberration when we do get it right. But the thing is, when we have this faith, God gives us His Spirit, and we start to get better at it. And so, Bobby, you want to come in and talk about the martyrs? Because I'm as a pastor and what I do, I'm not a historian of the faith. And I think sometimes people that are in Catholicism and other faiths, I think the martyrs in that are a more pronounced understanding and like an intrigue. So, Bobby, that was a great point you brought up.
Yeah, I just hear a lot of, I don't know a lot of the details and names, but I hear a lot of stories, and I read a lot about you know, saints over the years, you know, who have just, some of the stories you hear, the things that they did, and like while they're being killed, they're still praying, and they're preaching, and it's just like, I mean, I don't know the names, but when Christianity went to Japan at one point in history, you know, all these like I said, I don't know the names, but these people who went there, I mean, they were all like crucified, like upside down in the sea, like. And it's just, I hear story after story after story, and it's like all these people had to do was just denounce their belief in Jesus Christ, and they didn't, and they died for it. And it's like they weren't scared to die, and that's what's amazing. It's just that guarantee, that belief, that promise that they have, that covenant that they know when they pass on, they will be with God, with Jesus.
That's
you know, I mean,
I'm so glad you brought this point up, because that is probably one of the biggest proofs positive, because martyrdom is not the aberration in Christianity, it's the norm. I mean, this year across the world, there'll probably be well over 1 million Christians that'll be martyred and killed in India, in China, and in Russia, in Pakistan,
Iran, I mean,
and Indonesia,
everywhere,
and a lot of these other countries. And something would have to be so compelling and guaranteed for you to be willing to give up this life because you understand that life. You know, and that you know, what I try to do is set the table of understanding that we can get the proof in the story that this is something that's guaranteed because God guarantees it, and it's not dependent on us. Because if it was dependent on us, we would make some mistake somewhere. And, you know, also, God wants to take the credit for everything. He is God. He created everything. And everything is to His glory. And when we do good things, it's to His glory. And we become better, it's to His glory. And so our shifting of our salvation and our identity and actually having God's presence in us, God wants to have all the credit for that, because He's the one that sent His Son to do that. We did nothing. You know, the Bible says the wages of sin is death. All we can earn is death. That's all we can do in this life. Anything else is grace. And so, you know, getting to the point that you understand that this is guaranteed because of the historicity of the story. Abraham was real. Isaac was real. The timeline of history. I don't think they've tried to change that. They've tried to look at it differently. It's all real. Jesus' life, death, resurrection is all documented. And you can twist the story and you can look at it sideways, but the facts are the facts. And you can believe what you want. I'm not going to tell you what to believe. But the thing is, what would compel a movement that just grows bigger and bigger over history of people that are willing to just die? They're so guaranteed that this is solid, that what I have here, like Paul says, to live is Christ, to die is gain. You know, if I have life here, that's great. I'm going to be able to share Jesus with people. But if I die, things get much better. And that's a guarantee. And only through what you can look and see what Christians act like, true Christians act like. Because don't look at what's out there for the most part as Christianity. It's Christendom. It kind of looks a little bit like it. But read for yourself. Find people who are really willing to die and are willing to stand on the things that the Bible says is true, that Jesus said is true. And just say, come to the door, put a bullet in my head. I'm not turning my back on what God says and who he is, because I know the big picture. And that's a guarantee. Every other spirituality, every other philosophy, Islam, growing religion, they don't know. The best of them don't know. And it really makes sense, because when you go back to the core, and I want to kind of end this, because at one point I'm going to have the Islam versus Christianity talk, but their religion is based on Abraham's son Ishmael. Ishmael was a product of Abraham and Sarah deciding that God needed help, and brought in Hagar to have what they decided was the child of promise. And Islam was founded on Ishmael. And it's a religion of works. It's a religion of, can we do this good enough? Can we do what it takes to be righteous with God? And that's what Abraham and Ishmael and Hagar did, was they took matters into their own hand and say, we're going to bring the promise. And God said, no, it's not the way we work here. And so, that's why that religion is a religion that the best of them cannot look you in the eye and say, I know I'm going to heaven, because they don't have that guarantee. It's nowhere in their theology. It's nowhere in their sacred books, the Quran, the Hadith, the Sirah. It's not within their sacred documents. The best they can have is hope that all the works they have has brought them righteousness, but they're never going to know. Thank God for blessed assurance, grace. We know because there's nothing we could do to earn it. And when we have it, there's nothing we can do to lose it. And so, I don't know, you got anything you want to add to finish this off, Bobby?
No, that's
No?
pretty good.
So, I hope you learned a little bit about really the core of what the Christian faith is. This isn't a religion. And when we say it's a relationship, it truly is. Because we're in relationship with someone who we believe to be the Son of God, who is a family member and changes everything. And so we'll be back in a minute with my word for the week, giving a little more theological and biblical understanding of this faith, grace, guarantee, and why this faith, Christianity, we have what is called the blessed assurance. I'll see you in a minute with the word for the week.
Hey everybody, this is Motorcycle Mike, the personal injury lawyer. In addition to representing injured motorcyclists for over 30 years now, during that same time, I've represented countless car crash victims and construction workers injured on construction sites. If you need my assistance, go to my website, motorcyclemikeesq.com. I will always be there for you.
Welcome back to Answers from Mars Hill, and this is my word for the week. We've been talking about this core principle that is part of the Christian faith, and how I've kind of tried to impress and give an understanding that that religious thought, religious concept is really not what Christianity is really all about. And I've been talking about this faith grace guarantee, that if we understand what our faith is based on, that the promises we have, just like the promises that Abraham had, are guaranteed. And because of how it came about, the fact that we call ourselves a Christian based on the story of Abraham, through Isaac, through Israel, through Jesus, through his resurrection, and through the church. If we really call ourselves, identify ourselves as Christian, based on those things, we are making a statement that we believe them. And I think that possibly maybe the majority of people who want to call themselves a Christian do not truly believe that they're guaranteed, that what God said is our inheritance. Paul talks about the inheritance we have. Abraham talked about being the father of nations, and not just Israel, the father of people from all nations, which is what the church has become. And so if we have a loving Father, which is God, and we are convinced, and truly, truly convinced to the core, that we are followers of Jesus, that we give our life to everything that he has said, the promises he gave, which is really the reestablishment and the amplification of the promises that God gave through Abraham, then we should really understand that God tells us it's guaranteed. And part of that guarantee, as I've been explaining, is the fact that we can't do anything because we know how dependable we are, how dependable the things of the world are, the people of the world are. And nobody is 1,000% guaranteed to come through. You know, even if somebody has great intentions, there are things outside of their realm of what they are in control of, that something could come in that could delay, might even inhibit, might even disqualify what someone is promised to do or promised to be for you. And that's the world we live in. That's the world we know. But when we understand that this is the all-sovereign God, and there is nothing out of his sphere of influence, nothing can surprise him, nothing can derail him. And so when God gives us a guarantee, because what we have only came by a miraculous move of this sovereign entity called God, Yahweh, Jehovah, Jesus, then that's a pretty rock-solid guarantee. And I propose that if people really knew that their promises are guaranteed, they would live totally different. And we've been talking about the martyrs. We've been talking about the early church. And also part of the Church of Jesus Christ around the world that are being martyred every minute, every day, just like they've been over history. And it's part of this faith, is as the world but continues to devolve, just throwing the whole premise of evolution on its face, that more and more we will be persecuted, we will have things come against us, we will be martyred, we will be tried, we'll be suffering. And those who really believe to the core of their being, this is true, they're going to know it's part of the deal. They're not going to look for a prosperity doctrine or a faith movement that it's all about this life. This life's got to be good. If people put their faith in that's part of this, then they haven't really settled on what God actually has promised is guaranteed. Because if we knew that, then we'd live differently. We would live much differently. Those who actually believe we have a guarantee live a life very Christ-like. They serve. They don't hoard. They might have some influence, but they give away more than they have because they know that this is only temporal and everything we have here, we die and what's here is gone. But what we store up in the good things that last forever, that's what Jesus talked about, storing up riches in heaven. Now, what is that? That is, we use our resources here not to enhance our life here. There's nothing wrong with being comfortable and having our needs supplied as long as we understand that the cash and the things that supply our need are actually a byproduct of God supplying those things to supply our needs. There's nothing wrong with, having a lifestyle, but when you look around the world, those who claim to be followers of Jesus and claim to believe we have a guarantee, why do they amass so much personal wealth? Why do they put so much stock in this life? Because they view this life as being too much, more than a tool that it's supposed to be, more than the arena that we've been blessed and graced to step into for the sole purpose of helping people step into the promise that is the ultimate promise. Paul says in Romans chapter 4, verse 16, he says, "For this reason it is by faith." Our whole belief, our whole theology, everything about following Jesus is about faith, not tradition, not a bunch of religious regulations and sacraments and methodologies. It's faith and nothing else. So in order that may be in accordance with grace, our faith is our faith in grace. Our faith is we believe that there's nothing we can do to deserve this. Grace is, I don't deserve it. There's nothing I can do to deserve it, but God gives it to us freely. And that's the miracle guarantee, because what is given freely can't be taken away. There was no conditions. That's why works is talked about. If we believe there's something we can do to hold on to being close to God, to working our way up to being close to God, then the blood of Jesus poured on the ground for absolutely nothing. And that's what our faith is based on. That's what our life is based on. And what would compel the millions upon millions of people who have died willingly, proclaiming, this is the truth. Jesus is the Son of God. He gave me a promise of life, life abundant here, and having joy and having peace, and not changing the world around us to give us peace from the outside, but to change us so no matter what comes in our life, we can have peace from the inside. But also the promise of a new day when all of creation gets redeemed, brought back to what it was supposed to be. And all the hard things, all the suffering, all the pain, everything we experience here is gone. And we can live life as life was intended to be lived when God said, let there be light. That promise is guaranteed. It's guaranteed through the impossible promise that was given to Abraham, the impossible child. It was given to us through the impossible life of Jesus Christ, who was fully human, fully lived the life we live, fully died, and then brought himself back to life 3 days later to tell us who he was, but to give us a picture of our salvation. See, Isaac being born was a picture of every believer, of everyone that steps into this faith. And because Isaac was an impossibility, there's no way that Abraham and Sarah could have a child. Sarah's womb was, as the Bible calls it, dead. She was decades from having any possibility of bearing a child, which is the point. Abraham being 99, all right, that's an impossibility. Abraham himself said, counting my own body as dead. So Abraham knew that there's nothing in him that could produce what was necessary to produce a child. And so God brought the first child a promise. So that promise to Abraham was guaranteed. It came through a miracle birth, a birth that could only happen because of God. And that's the story of all of us. We have this biblical truth called being born again. And when we understand it's nothing we've done, it's just we've just given everything over, and then God downloads this miraculous grace and gives us everything that he has freely and guarantee it with the blood on the cross. We can get an understanding that we did nothing to earn it. The Spirit that God gives us, and if you are truly born again, have stepped into this faith in Jesus Christ and become a child of God, you know it because the Spirit testifies. There's things that have gone on in you, changed in you, and you've said that, I don't know how the heck that happened, but that's a miracle. Well, that's the point, folks. That is also evidence of the guarantee that God's promises are true. Let's live like it. Let's show the world that this is true. There may be a time coming where some of us might have to die for our faith, stand and be locked up. It's already happening. Understand what we believe in is guaranteed. And if you're out there and you are in another faith distinctive, understand, look into your faith and see what can you hang your hat on? What can you bank your eternity? What you're pouring your whole life into. Is it worth it? Is there some end game that is worth it? Not something like Buddhism, which is nice and you can become a nice person here, but the ultimate gain is nothing. My alarm went off. So anyway, I guess that's time to call it a show. Anyway, that was interesting. So this has been Answers from Mars Hill. That's my word for the week. And be a seeker. Seek them all. Don't just look into Christianity. Compare and see where the lack is in the spiritual realm of other spiritualities. The non-assurance of putting your faith and your whole life into something that always leaves you with the question, what if I'm wrong? Well, we have the faith, grace, guarantee. And it's real. That's my word for the week. This is Pastor Ski. Thank you for tuning in to Answers from Mars Hill. God bless you.